Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session of Envision Weekly Live Webinars. My name is Burcu, and I'm the VP of System Engineering Customer Success here at Canvas. I'll be guiding you through today's session. Just keep in mind, these interactive sessions will guide you through the key tools and workflows available in our Envision portal and Envision Creator. And my goal is to enable you to create and manage these digital work instructions more efficiently and seamlessly in our platform. And today's session is about converting a static documentation to a digital interactive assembly instructions in this example that we're going to do together. So let me start sharing my screen and we can get started. Cool. So that was my first slide here, showing you guys the title. Just in some agenda to share, we will spend the first 20 minutes with a live demo of key features, and I will reserve the last couple of minutes for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, I will make sure I will answer them in real time. So feel free to drop them into the chat anytime. So before we get started, I would like to remind you, this is just one of the sessions that we will have every Wednesday. So stay tuned every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, covering new topics to get you the most from your trial experience. Okay, so let's get to just a brief introduction of our platform. As you may already know, our Canvas Envision application is an instructional authoring platform that enables our customers to efficiently create digital step-by-step work instructions. The platform includes a browser-based creator application with an intuitive UI with a ribbon structure that simplifies this authoring process. And our customers can also take advantage of our SDKs to customize their workflows, as well as embed the creator application into other systems like PLM, MES, and LMS. In the case of PLM integrations, the CAD data can be directly imported from the single source of truth, and the creator can be notified if there are any changes to the model. So this way, the documentation is sustainable, and all the 3D views that are linked in the back end will be updated on the fly, as well as animations. And the second area over here, our Envision platform also includes an easy-to-manage document management portal with admin permissions, user privileges, document settings, review and sharing features. Like the creator application, this portal can be also embedded to other systems, allowing users to access the documentation from widely used systems like MES or ERP even. And then the last part of our platform is the viewer application. The documentation that the creators are creating can be viewed during or after creation in a browser for an interactive consumption experience, featuring customizable dialog prompts, 3D models, and layered actions to switch different types of data, even different languages for multilingual workforce. And the viewer application can also be embedded into various digital threads in the organization. At the bottom of our slide over here, we offer our SaaS platform through AWS or Azure Cloud Services. Alternatively, we can also host Envision on our customers' private cloud or on their on-premise infrastructure. Cool. So let's dive into today's session. So I'm going to jump into a brand new document. As you guys remember, the ribbon structure at the top. For those that are brand new to our platform, just a quick overview. Envision has a Microsoft looking UI with the ribbon structure at the top, as you can see, and you could simply switch between different ribbons to get different functionalities and workflows that you're looking for. It's a contextual application, so if you click on a specific object, that will give you a ribbon that is customizable for that data, that you could see the features and functionalities related to that object. So in this session, we're going to bring an existing static PDF document. As we all know, the organizations today, they have static documentation either has been created in applications and converted to PDF, or they have been actually scanned from documentation and converted to PDF that is being used by the frontline workers today. So what we're going to do is bring one of them as an example in our Envision platform, and we're going to replace the static images with the 3D models so the documentation is interactive for the end user consumption. So first of all, to bring an existing documentation, either a template or as an existing document, we click on the insert button and we're going to hit append. And you have two options in here. One of them is an existing EV doc. The other one is a PDF. So we're going to click on the PDF option here, and we're going to select our PDF. That is the existing document. We're going to bring it to Canvas and then hit open. Envision is going to give us some settings, and I'm going to explain these a little bit more in detail here. So one thing is embedded fonts. Fonts are always challenging because in the documentation, you have your marketing specific fonts that you wanted to honor in the documentation, whereas Envision will do its best to substitute that with the default fonts that we have in our platform. Alternatively, you can convert to these paths, but then in that case, it will be a vector graphics. Obviously, then you won't be able to type anything. They will be like simple polygons that you can edit and modify. However, they won't be text that you can use as a textual data. And text merging, we have 4 different options. Usually, again, in Envision, we try to optimize these default dialog box settings, but depending on the text boxes or text paragraphs you have, you might need to play in this setting pretty much all the time, depending, again, what you're looking for. But usually precise or loose will give you the best options, depending on, as I said, how your textual data has been brought to a PDF documentation. Is it from a Word or is it from an Adobe application? That definitely makes a difference in our platform. Text flow, we have disabled hard returns and continuous flow. Basically, hard returns are optimized. Again, it gives a break between when the word ends, and then you get a hard return at the end of the word. But again, that depends completely on the text flow that you wanted to achieve. You can do disable or you can do continuous flow as well. We usually select ungroup, release, and remove all clipping paths as checkbox. Ungrouping is important because you want to click on a data and you want to delete it as needed. And then release and remove all clipping paths, also another functionality that we check it as default. If not needed, just make sure you unselect the box. But if you wanted to basically click on an object that you want to delete and modify in this documentation, make sure that box is checked. So we're going to click OK in here in this dialog box. What Envision is going to do is going to bring that PDF documentation here is in an editable format, and we're going to tear it apart. And I said we're going to make a quick template together and then replace some of the static images with a 3D model for end user to consume this documentation interactively. So in the meantime, while that is importing, a couple of things that keep in mind. If the PDF has a lot of textual data, obviously making sure that textual information is being represented by the visuals is extremely important. Also, dividing those textual data into different pages as well as different layers makes a huge difference by the consumers to consume this documentation effectively. If you have a lot of text in one page, and if somebody's trying to read it and understand, that becomes extremely challenging. However, if you could actually layer those textual or visual objects in different layers, they can pick and choose when and what to consume in that specific moment. So this documentation has 17 pages, and they all actually 16 pages. The first page comes as blank, and then I can simply from the page navigator can delete that page and then get access to the first page in here. Perfect. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to create a quick template. Just delete this. It listens. Right. All right. So we deleted the first page, and now we have the first page over here, the empty page, and then now we have the first page in here. And if I look at the other pages of this documentation, we have some structures like this bar over here, kind of like the box of the documentation is our template, as well as this blue box over here that we can actually group that. If you remember, we actually ungroup those objects, but we can select them and then we can group them if you wanted to bring them together into our master page environment. But just as an example, if I want to take this structure, let me just do right click and see if there is any ungrouping necessary. As you can see, every object that I click are all ungrouped, so I can simply edit these and select them one by one. Let's select these corners and this one over here, and I'm going to do simply copy. And I'm going to go to the master page, and we're going to hit home, and under the paste, we have paste and place, or you could also click on Control-Shift-V for the paste and place shortcut. Awesome. So let's go back to the page. And again, if you wanted to bring the box around the page, you can also do so. And some text boxes to use as a template. And once we have our master page with the logos and all the settings that you're looking for, and we can go to the pages and simply right click on the page and then add that master page to our page. We can basically link it to our page. Okay. Cool. So what we're going to do in this session, we're going to select this image. As you know, that it's actually an image file. Like you can see that it's a contextual ribbon. It opens and gives us all the features around the image editing functionalities. But what we're going to do is actually we're going to delete that image to bring our 3D model. We're going to click on Insert and the 3D model Insert option. The data that we're bringing today is a step file, so we're going to choose the first option. But if you remember, we went through different file formats like SolidWorks, CATIA, Creo, that would require one of the second or the third options to bring that 3D model into Canvas environment by simply selecting the linking file for the assembly that you're trying to bring. Or the third option was selecting the whole folder, and in the next prompt, it will tell you which assembly that you want to bring. It's basically a filtering option that gives you with the third option in here if you select the whole folder to bring into Canvas environment. So in this case, we're going to select the first option to select the step file. Our model is right here, and I'm going to click Open, and that is going to bring our model into our Canvas environment. If you join our previous session, we ran through some features and functionalities on how to manipulate a 3D model, how to create an exploded view or different perspective views, and we're going to utilize some of those today. When bringing a 3D model, you will have this dialog box to be able to choose the settings that is right for your CAD data. One thing that is extremely important, if you do have biref geometry that is selected as default, and it's extremely important for creating dimensions or anything that is more sensitive, that is geometry related. So make sure that that box is checked, and also the PMI data. If you have any specific metadata that you want to use it in your documentation creation, we need to make sure that box is also checked. And we're going to click OK. And Envision is going to start processing the 3D model. And what we do in the background, convert this model to a lightweight file format called PRC. And with that file, the file size stays optimum. And as you know, once we import the model to Canvas Envision, we do not re-import it to create different views. We basically copy the same model from one page to another or from one layer to another to create different views to keep the file size as small as possible. So here's our model. And as you guys can see, it's a 3D object. So as soon as that comes into Canvas environment, the 3D model ribbon tab opens, the contextual tab, and I can simply click on the edit option over here and simply go ahead and change the view that is going to help in my documentation. If you guys remember from the PDF, that was the view that it was kind of isometric. So that's what we're going to create in this view. And we went through this in a previous session, but let me just go through it together quickly. We're going to turn on the assembly tree as well as 3D properties. And it looks like our top of the model is not really correct. And to change that world axis that came into Canvas Envision in a not right position, while nothing is selected in your 3D view, from the 3D properties, you go all the way down, and the right setting for this model is Y+. And that brings our top of the model to the top view. And you guys can see we have different parts in this model. It's a pretty cool model that one of my colleagues use in their documentation, and I'm kind of utilizing from him. And it has very good bill of material structure. It's a 3D printer, and it has a power supply that has like nicely defined as subassembly, and then some other functionality that helps you to create different settings in the documentation. And especially if you're creating an animation, this becomes extremely important for someone to be able to divide these into different groups to create the steps accordingly. For example, the printing head is, if I go a little bit further down, it has a very cool some roller axis over here. It's nicely modeled and configured for creators to be able to use in our platform as well. You don't need to be CAD engineers to be able to create these 3D views inside of Canvas Envision. Awesome. So what we have this view, and as you guys can see, the top on the right-hand side, the top is on the top, right is on the right-hand side, the front is facing towards the front of the model, and the back and the left as well. To create perspective views in Canvas Envision, you could utilize the cube. However, if you remember from our previous sessions, we can also go to the View tab under the View ribbon tab. You have we have View, and if you go down, you have North isometric. We have Southeast isometric, which is kind of like a different perspective depending on what we're explaining in our documentation. And we have other options as well. In this case, we're going to use North isometric. That is the closest one that we want to use in our documentation, so everybody can see it from that perspective. And we're going to hit save to capture that view. Again, we kind of went through this in the past in terms of creating that 3D box according to our page layout. But if you already created the view and if you're happy with it, one shortcut that I can tell you is you can actually manipulate that 3D box by holding from the corner, and your cursor will become a double-sided arrow, and you can resize it and simply fit it inside of where you want it to fit. So if I go to the View tab, and if I do fit the window, now that 3D view will stay there inside of exactly my view that I'm looking for in the box that is in my template. One thing that I want to mention, if this 3D mark bothers you, or is kind of like overlapping with other objects in your documentation, you can simply turn it off clicking on this checkbox. However, keep in mind, it turns off from all the 3D objects in the documentation. So it's a general setting. It's not page by page setting. Just keep in mind. Again, in some cases, it's useful for end user to understand that's a 3D object. But sometimes what my customers do, for example, click on a symbol like this, and then simply put that in there as a kind of like an anecdote for the end user to understand that's a 3D data. And that is extremely cool because, not everybody is used to the 3D marks or the Envision documentation. So you could definitely help them to understand what they're looking at, and then click on the model to inspect further. So if I actually go ahead and put this documentation in the check-in viewer mode, which is visualizing in the web browser for the end user consumption. You will open in the viewer, as I mentioned in the opening of this webinar. Our viewer is browser-based. We also have offline viewers, so you could visualize these documentation from an offline environment as well. But simply for the end user, that documentation, that page that we just created with the 3D data is all interactive for the end user. And let me show you what they will be experiencing. They can simply manipulate that model from any perspective. They have different views. If you remember our view ribbon in the documentation, they can simply explore from different perspectives. They can rotate the model, go back to the original position, which is resetting the view, and select a part, and they can simply isolate that part either from the ribbon at the top, or they can simply right click on it as well. So to be able to isolate that part as well. So let's do that, for example, to be able to see what type of connector for that printer that they're looking at. They can simply visualize that as a viewer. If you mess things up, if you don't know how to get back to the original, you have either reset the view, or you can simply click on any white area besides the box. It will take you back to the original settings of this documentation, and that way it's easy to go back if you mess anything up. And if I go to the page navigator, I can see the documentation, other pages in this document. And one thing that I want to mention, that it is kind of like a buried setting of a 3D model. If you wanted to open this 3D model in a full view mode, you can click on this four-sided arrow when you hover your mouse over the 3D model, and then you will actually also will have access to the assembly tree. So you can select a part and further explore, further inspect this model on what parts you might need, or what parts that you're trying to service, or what part you're trying to maintenance inside of our inside of your environment, or on the shop floor. So it's pretty cool. And then functionality that you could simply utilize in our platform. And one thing that I want to show, this is a multi-page documentation. I can share this with you guys. Again, that PDF brought to Canvas environment, and all the views in here are completely interactive. And we will explore this in our next session, actually. But here is an animation that you could simply click on and play along in terms of the step-by-step instructions in the tool. And you could simply see how it actually explains that step in a simulation mode, in a simulated mode, with the parts moving from one another. So let me go ahead and show you guys that animation. It's over here. Again, we will go through this in our next session. But if I go ahead and click on this, and click over here, there is animation, and then click on edit animation, so you guys can see that 4-step instruction in this documentation has been actually animated for the end user to be able to understand it better. Again, they can read the instructions, they can see it in 3D view, but if I play this animation, you guys can see those parts, how they need to be assembled together to be able to explain those 4 steps in a more visual and more in a way that they can understand. And from the viewer perspective, they can pause the animation anytime to further inspect the model or the parts in our application. Again, that's something that we're going to explore in our next session, the animation and layer actions. So stay tuned. But this is how you can take a static documentation and simply make it a dynamic document for your end users. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session, and I hope you found this instruction of navigating the 3D view functionalities from a static documentation to dynamic helpful, and you're feeling more confident of bringing your existing documentation to Canvas, how to bring that existing document, what PDF settings to use in our tool, and simply tear that apart and bring the 3D CAD data for the end user consumption. Just as a reminder, we have our creating 3D animations, managing complex layers, and delivering dynamic training. Again, we will touch on the training more because of the animation and simply working with different layers. making those trainings dynamic and helpful for the end users to pick and choose what type of data they need and what they need to consume from a documentation. And we will take that from a creator perspective as well as from the consumer perspective in our next session next Wednesday, November 13 at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for joining today, and looking forward to see you in our next webinar. Have a great day.